The peaceful life Nara had built with the Kethmori was shattered when human military ships appeared in the sky above their forest home. She stood on the palace balcony next to Kyung, watching as dozens of aircraft circled overhead like predatory birds. Her heart sank as she recognized the insignia of her former colony painted on their hulls. "They have come for war," Kyung said grimly. His silver eyes tracked the movement of the ships, and his body was tense with controlled anger. "My scouts report that they brought enough firepower to level half the forest." But why, Nara asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. The Kethmori had never attacked human settlements. They kept to their own territory and only defended themselves when threatened, because they are afraid, Jin Ho said as he joined them on the balcony. A tracker had been monitoring human communications for hours. "They call us a threat to their expansion plans. They want our territory for farming and mining." Nara felt sick to her stomach. Her own people were willing to commit genocide simply to take land that did not belong to them. They had convinced themselves that the Kethmori were dangerous beasts who needed to be eliminated for the greater good. Within hours, a massive human army had assembled at the edge of the Forbidden Zone. Thousands of soldiers in powered armor carried energy weapons and portable shield generators. Hover tanks and artillery units took positions along a battle line that stretched for miles. They had come prepared for total war, but what shocked Nara most was seeing her parents among the military leaders. Colonel Kim Tae-woo wore his dress uniform, covered in medals and ribbons. Dr. Kim Hae-jin stood beside him in the white coat of a military scientist. Both of them looked confident and determined as they surveyed the alien forest they planned to destroy. A voice boomed from amplifiers mounted on the lead command vehicle. "Attention, inhabitants of the restricted zone. This is Colonel Kim Tae-woo of the Terra 9 Colonial Defense Force. You are ordered to surrender immediately or face complete annihilation." Kyung stepped forward to the edge of the balcony where the humans could see him clearly. His massive frame and silver eyes marked him obviously as the leader of his people. When he spoke, his voice carried easily across the distance without any technological assistance. "This is our ancestral home," he called back. "We have lived here in peace for thousands of years. We have never harmed your people or threatened your territory. Leave now and there will be no bloodshed." The response came from Dr. Kim. "Hae-jin, we know you are holding our daughter Kim Nara against her will. Release her immediately and we might consider terms for your surrender." Nara felt a surge of rage unlike anything she had ever experienced. Her parents had abandoned her to die in this very forest. Now they dared to claim they had come to rescue her. The hypocrisy was so complete it took her breath away. Before Kyung could respond, Nara stepped forward into full view of the human army. She wore the traditional robes of a Kethmori queen, and her skin glowed faintly with absorbed energy. The sight of their supposedly helpless daughter standing proudly beside the alien king sent murmurs of shock through the human ranks. "I am not being held against my will," she called out. Her voice was amplified by the energy flowing through her, making it ring with authority across the battlefield. "I am here by choice as the queen and partner of King Dae." Kyung, the stunned silence that followed was broken by her father's angry voice. "You are under alien mind control," he shouted. "These beasts have corrupted your thinking. We have come to bring you home where you belong." Home, Nara laughed, and the sound held no humor at all. "You mean the place where you called me defective and useless, the place where you abandoned me to die alone in the wilderness? I am already home, father. For the first time in my life, I am exactly where I belong." Her words seemed to enrage the human forces. Colonel Kim began barking orders and the army prepared for immediate attack. Energy weapons powered up with high-pitched whines. Shield generators hummed to life, creating barriers of crackling force. But before they could fire, Nara did something that changed everything. She stepped off the palace balcony and walked calmly toward the human battle line. Kyung called her name in alarm, but she raised her hand to stop him from following. This was something she had to do alone. The humans opened fire when she was still hundreds of yards away. Dozens of energy beams lanced through the air, aimed directly at her. The weapons they used could vaporize solid rock or melt through the thickest armor plating. None of them could touch her. Nara stood in the middle of the bombardment and absorbed every blast. The energy flowed into her body like water soaking into dry earth. Her skin blazed with silver light as she took in more power than any normal being could survive. The air around her shimmered with heat distortion from the sheer amount of energy. She was processing. The human weapons fired continuously for several minutes before running out of power. When the barrage finally stopped, Nara was still standing exactly where she had been. Not a single hair on her head was out of place. The silence that followed was absolute. Thousands of human soldiers stared in disbelief at the small figure glowing like a star in the middle of their kill zone. Their most advanced weapons had proven completely useless against her. Nara began walking toward them again. With each step, she released some of the energy she had absorbed, directing it harmlessly into the ground. Small flowers sprouted from her footprints, and the grass grew greener where she passed. When she reached the human battle line, the soldiers backed away from her in fear and awe. Their weapons were drained and their confidence was shattered. The creature they had come to rescue was clearly more powerful than anything they had ever encountered. She stopped directly in front of her parents, who were staring at her with expressions of shock and disbelief. Dr. Kim Hae-jin held some kind of scanning device that was beeping frantically as it tried to analyze the energy readings coming from her daughter. "This is impossible," she whispered. "No human can absorb that much energy without dying." "What have they done to you?" "They opened my eyes," Nara replied calmly. "They showed me what I really am instead of telling me what I cannot do. They gave me a family that loves me for who I am not." "What they want me to be." Colonel Kim stepped forward with his hand on his sidearm. "You were our daughter," he said angrily. "We raised you and cared for you for 20 years. How can you choose these aliens over your own blood?" Nara looked at him with pity rather than anger. "You never cared for me, father. You were ashamed of me from the day I was born. You saw me as a failure and a burden. When I needed you most, you threw me away like garbage." She gestured toward the Kethmori forces that were now emerging from the forest. Thousands of silver-eyed warriors took positions behind their king, but they made no aggressive moves. They were content to let their queen handle the situation. "These people saw my worth when you could not," she continued. "They celebrated my differences instead of condemning them. They made me part of their family while you tried to erase me from yours." Dr. Kim raised her scanner again, studying the readings with growing amazement. "The energy levels you are displaying should be impossible," she said. "According to this, you have absorbed enough power to level a city? How are you controlling it?" "Because this is what I was meant to do," Nara explained patiently. "This is why I was born different. Not to be a failure among humans, but to be a bridge between species. I am exactly what the universe intended me to be." The human army began to withdraw as their leaders realized the hopelessness of their situation. Their target could neutralize all their weapons single-handedly and showed no signs of being affected by their most powerful attacks. Continuing the assault would be suicide, but before they retreated completely, Colonel Kim made one last desperate attempt to reach his daughter. "If you truly have chosen to stay with them," he called out, "then we will respect your decision. But know that you will always have a place among your own people if you change your mind." Nara shook her head sadly. "I am no longer one of your people, father. I am something new, something better. I am the future that you were too afraid to embrace." As the human forces disappeared over the horizon, Hyun came to stand beside his mate. He was proud of how she had handled the confrontation without violence or revenge. She had shown strength and mercy in equal measure. "You could have destroyed them all," he said quietly. "The power you absorbed would have been more than enough." Yes. Nara agreed as she watched the last of the aircraft vanish into the distance. "But that would have made me just like them. I chose to be better." The victory celebration that night was subdued. The Kethmori were happy that their home was safe, but they took no joy in the fear and confusion of their enemies. Under Nara's influence, they were learning that true strength came from protecting rather than destroying. As she stood on the palace balcony looking out over the forest she loved, Nara felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had faced the people who had rejected her and shown them exactly what they had thrown away. She had proven that being different was not the same as being defective. More importantly, she had done it without becoming the monster they expected her to be. She had chosen compassion over vengeance, understanding over hatred. She was truly the bridge walker, now ready to help heal the wounds between different worlds. In the weeks that followed, Nara learned more about herself than she had in 20 years of life. Every day brought new discoveries about her abilities and her place in Kethmori society. The Alpha King made sure she had the best teachers and unlimited time to practice her newfound skills. Elder Moon Jay, the oldest and wisest of the Kethmori, explained the history of beings like her. Long ago, he said, there were many humans who could absorb and redirect energy. They were the bridges between different species, the peacekeepers who prevented wars through understanding rather than force, but over time these special humans became fewer and fewer. Their own kind feared them and began to view their abilities as dangerous rather than helpful. Many were killed or driven away. Others learned to hide their gifts and never pass them on to their children. You represent the return of an ancient bloodline, Moon, Jay told Nara as they sat in his garden of crystalline flowers. Your appearance here at this time is not coincidence. The universe has plans for you, child. Nara was beginning to believe him. Every day she grew stronger and more confident. She could now absorb energy from multiple sources at once and redirect it with pinpoint accuracy. She could sense emotions and intentions from great distances. Most importantly, she was learning to use her abilities to help others. When young Kethmori warriors came to her with injuries, she could channel healing energy directly into their bodies. When disputes arose between different clans, she could sense the true feelings behind their words and help them find common ground. The people began to call her the bridge walker because she could connect minds and hearts that had been separated by misunderstanding. But the most amazing change was in her relationship with Kyung. The soul bond between them grew stronger every day, creating a connection that went deeper than anything either of them had ever experienced. They could sense each other's emotions even when they were far apart. They could communicate without words through the silver energy that flowed between them. Kyung had been a great leader before, but with Nara by his side he became something more. Her unique perspective helped him make better decisions for his people. Her ability to understand different viewpoints made him a more effective diplomat. Together they were more powerful than either could have been alone. One evening as they walked through the palace gardens, Nara asked a question that had been troubling her for days. What if my parents were right? She said quietly. What if I really am not meant to have a normal life? What if being special means I can never have the simple things that other people take for granted? Kyung stopped walking and turned to look at her. The moonlight made his silver eyes glow like stars, and his expression was serious but gentle. What simple things do you want? He asked. Tell me what you think you are missing, and I will show you that you are wrong. Nara felt tears starting to form in her eyes. I want to belong somewhere, she whispered. I want someone to love me for who I am, not what I can or cannot do. I want to have a family that will never abandon me no matter what happens. The Alpha King reached out and cupped her face in his huge hands. His touch was warm and comforting and filled with the silver energy that connected them. Little treasure, he said, using the pet name he had given her. You already have all those things. You belong here with me and my people. I love you more than I have ever loved anything in my entire life. And I will never abandon you no matter what the universe throws at us. Before she could respond, he leaned down and kissed her. The moment their lips touched, something extraordinary happened. The energy she had been absorbing and storing for weeks suddenly flowed between them, creating a visible bond of silver light that surrounded their bodies. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever imagined. It was as if two halves of the same soul were finally reunited after being separated for lifetimes. Every cell in her body sang with joy and completion. She could feel Kyung's love flowing into her heart while her own love flowed into his. The light grew brighter and brighter until it could be seen from every part of the palace. Kethmori, who had been going about their evening routines, stopped. what they were doing and stared in wonder at the silver glow coming from the royal gardens. When the light finally faded, Nara and Kyung found themselves changed. The bond between them was now permanent and unbreakable. They could feel each other's heartbeats and share each other's thoughts. They had become two parts of a single greater being. The palace erupted in celebration that night. Warriors who had served Kyung for decades wept with joy, knowing their Alpha King had finally found his perfect mate. The bond ceremony that followed was the most magnificent event in the history of their people. Nara wore robes made of silver thread that glowed with its own inner light. Kyung stood beside her in the ceremonial armor of his ancestors. Together they spoke the ancient vows that would unite their lives forever. I give you my strength so that you will never be weak, Elder Moon-jae intoned as he blessed their union. I give you my heart so that you will never be alone, Kyung repeated the ritual words, but his eyes never left Nara's face. I give you my soul so that you will never be lost. Nara said, her voice strong and clear despite the tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. The celebration lasted for 3 days. Representatives from allied clans came from across the planet to witness the historic event. Never before had a Kethmori Alpha bonded with a human, but everyone could see that this was meant to be. During the festivities, Nara met King's closest advisors and learned about the responsibilities she would share as his mate. She would not just be a queen in name, but an active partner in governing their people. Her unique abilities made her invaluable for diplomacy and conflict resolution. The most touching moment came when a group of young Kethmori children presented her with gifts they had made themselves. Small carvings of flowers and animals crafted with careful attention to detail. They called her Mother Queen and asked if she would tell them stories about the human world. Sitting in the great hall surrounded by children who looked at her with wonder instead of fear, Nara realized how much her life had changed. A few months ago she had been considered worthless by her own species. Now she was beloved by an entire civilization of beings who saw her true value. That night, as she and Kyung lay together in their royal chambers, she marveled at the silver light that still flickered between them. The bond made her feel complete in a way she had never experienced before. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your parents had not abandoned you? Kyung asked as he stroked her hair. Nara considered the question seriously. If she had stayed in the human colony, she would probably have spent her whole life believing she was defective. She might have found some small job that did not require energy manipulation, but she would never have discovered her true potential. I think everything happened exactly as it was supposed to, she said finally. My parents thought they were throwing away something broken and worthless, but they were actually setting me free to become who I was always meant to be. Kyung pulled her closer, and she could feel his love and pride flowing through their bond. You are the strongest person I have ever known, he said. To survive rejection and abandonment and still have so much love to give. To discover you are special and use that gift to help others instead of seeking revenge. You are everything I could have hoped for in a mate and more. As they drifted off to sleep surrounded by the silver glow of their bond, Nara felt truly happy for the first time in her life. She had found her place in the universe, and it was more wonderful than anything she could have imagined. She was no longer the unwanted daughter who could not produce energy. She was the bridge walker, the queen of the Kethmori, the other half of the Alpha King's soul. She was exactly where she belonged. Kyung led Nara and his warriors deeper into the forest toward the hidden city of the Kethmori. As they walked, he explained things that made her head spin with amazement. For 20 years, she had been told that her inability to produce life energy was a terrible flaw. But according to Kyung, it was actually something wonderful and rare. Your body is not broken, he said as they moved along paths that seemed to appear from nowhere. It is evolved. You represent what your species will become in the future if they survive long enough to develop properly. Nara found it hard to believe. How could something that made her parents ashamed be a good thing? But Kyung seemed completely serious, and his warriors nodded in agreement when he spoke. These powerful beings who could crush her without effort were treating her with respect and even reverence. The Kethmori had been studying human energy for generations, Kyung continued. We know that individuals like you appear maybe once in every 1,000 births. Your people fear you because they do not understand what you represent. They see only what you cannot do and ignore what you can do. What can I do? Nara asked. She had spent her whole life being told about her limitations. No one had ever suggested she might have special abilities instead of disabilities. Su Min, the female warrior, spoke up from behind them. You can absorb energy instead of producing it, she explained. You can take power from other sources and use it in ways that normal humans never could. You are also immune to most forms of psychic attack and mental manipulation. Nara stopped walking and stared at them. That sounded like something from a fantasy story, not real life. How could she have abilities like that without knowing it? Because no one ever tested you properly, Kyung said gently. Your people only looked for energy production. They never thought to test for energy absorption or redirection. They were measuring the wrong things. When they reached the Kethmori city, Nara gasped in wonder. It was built into living trees that were so huge she could not see their tops. Bridges made of woven branches connected structures that glowed with soft bioluminescent light. Everything was alive and growing and beautiful beyond anything she had ever imagined. The people who came out to greet them were just as amazing as their city. They were all tall and graceful, with the same silver eyes as Kyung. The men were powerfully built, while the women were elegant and deadly looking. Children played in the tree branches, high above, making sounds of joy and laughter that echoed through the canopy. But what surprised Nara most was how they reacted to her. Instead of fear or disgust, she saw curiosity and respect in their faces. Some of the older Kethmori even bowed slightly when Kyung introduced her. She had never been treated with such honor in her entire life. Kyung brought her to his palace, which was the most magnificent structure in the city. It was carved into the trunk of the largest tree she had ever seen. The walls were made of silver bark that seemed to glow from within. Gardens of alien flowers filled the air with perfumes that made her feel calm and happy. Everything in the palace was built for beings much larger than herself, but Kyung immediately called for craftspeople to create human-sized furniture and accommodations. He wanted her to be comfortable, and he spared no expense to make sure she had everything she needed. That evening, as they shared a meal of exotic fruits and perfectly prepared meats, Nara finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind all day. Why are you being so kind to me? She said quietly. I am just a human who wandered into your territory. Why do you care what happens to me? Kyung set down his cup and looked at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. Among my people, we believe that the universe creates perfect pairs, he said. Two beings who complete each other, who make each other stronger than they could ever be alone. He stood up and moved to where she sat. His massive frame should have been intimidating, but somehow Nara felt safe rather than frightened. He knelt down so they were at eye level, and his huge hands touched her face with incredible gentleness. From the moment I caught your scent, every instinct I possess has told me the same thing, he said. You are my mate, Nara, my soul bond. The one I have waited my entire life to find. The words should have terrified her. This powerful alien king who commanded thousands of warriors was claiming her as his partner. But instead of fear, she felt warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time in her life, someone wanted her exactly as she was. But I still do not understand what I can really do, she whispered. How can you be so sure I am special when I feel so ordinary? Kyung smiled and called for Su Min to join them. The female warrior entered the room and bowed respectfully to both of them. She had been eager to demonstrate Nara's abilities ever since they had found her in the forest. With your permission, my lady, Su Min said, I would like to show you what you are capable of. I will channel energy toward you and you can see what happens. When it touches you, Nara nodded nervously. She trusted these people, but she was still afraid of being disappointed again. What if nothing happened? What if they were wrong about her abilities? Su Min stood a few feet away and raised her hands. Silver light began to gather around her fingers, growing brighter and more intense by the second. The energy crackled and hummed with power that made the air itself vibrate. Finally, she released it in a concentrated beam aimed directly at Nara. What happened next changed everything. Nara thought she knew about herself. The energy hit her like a warm wave, but instead of harming her, it flowed into her body and made her skin glow with silver light. She could feel the power moving through her veins and settling into her bones. It was the most amazing sensation she had ever experienced. The light grew brighter and brighter until she was blazing like a star. Then slowly it began to fade as she absorbed every bit of the energy Su Min had sent her way. When it was over, she felt stronger and more alive than she ever had before. The warriors who had witnessed the demonstration dropped to their knees in reverence. In Kathmori culture, the ability to handle their energy directly was the mark of someone chosen by the universe itself. They had never seen a human display such capability. Kyung's eyes blazed with pride and something deeper as he looked at her. "You see," he said softly, "you are not worthless, Nara. You are priceless." Your own people were too blind to see the treasure they possessed. Nara stared down at her hands, which were still tingling with residual energy. For the first time in her life, she felt powerful instead of powerless. She felt special instead of defective. She felt wanted instead of rejected. The energy was still flowing through her, making her aware of things she had never noticed before. She could sense the life force of every creature in the palace. She could feel the pulse of the great tree that housed them. She could even detect the emotional states of the people around her. "This is incredible," she breathed. "I can feel everything. How did I live my whole life without knowing this was possible?" "Because your people were afraid of what they did not understand," Kyung said. "They wanted everyone to be the same, so they cast out anyone who was different." "But different does not mean defective. It means special." As the night wore on, Kyung explained more about her abilities. She could not only absorb energy but redirect it and shape it according to her will. With practice, she could become more powerful than any normal human had ever been. She could also serve as a bridge between different species, helping them understand each other better. "You could be a diplomat," he said. "A mediator who helps prevent wars and establishes peace between worlds. Your unique nature makes you valuable to every intelligent species in the galaxy." Nara felt tears running down her cheeks, but for the first time in years, they were tears of joy instead of sadness. She had spent so long believing she was broken that it was hard to accept she might actually be extraordinary. "Thank you," she whispered to Kyung. "Thank you for seeing something in me that I could not see in myself." The Alpha King pulled her close and held her gently against his massive chest. His heart was beating fast and strong, and she could feel his emotional state through their growing connection. He cared for her deeply and completely. He saw her as precious and valuable and worthy of love. For a girl who had been abandoned by her own parents, this kind of acceptance was like a miracle. She was not just tolerated here, she was celebrated. She was treasured. And for the first time in her entire life, Nara felt like she truly belonged somewhere. Deep in the heart of the Forbidden Zone, something stirred in the darkness. Kyung, the Alpha King of the Kathmori, lifted his head and breathed in deeply. His silver eyes opened wide as a new scent reached his powerful nose. It was human, but different from any human smell he had ever encountered before. Kyung was massive even by his people's standards. He stood 7 feet tall with broad shoulders and muscles that could crush stone. His skin had a pale silver tone that let him blend with the moonlight. Long dark hair fell past his shoulders and his eyes glowed like stars in the night. He was the strongest and smartest of all the Kathmori, which was why dozens of tribes followed his leadership. Tonight he was leading his monthly patrol through their territory. With him were his 5 best warriors. Each one was deadly and loyal beyond question. They moved through the forest like shadows, making no sound despite their size. Their enhanced senses could detect the smallest movement or the faintest smell from miles away. The strange new scent made all of them stop moving. Jinho, the tracker, tilted his head and sniffed the air. "This is definitely human, my lord," he said quietly. "But I have never smelled anything like it before. It is sweeter somehow. More complex." Su Min, the only female in their group, crouched down and touched the forest floor. "The scent trail is fresh," she reported. "Maybe an hour old. The human is moving deeper into our territory." Kyung felt something strange happening in his chest. His heart was beating faster than normal, and his hands were starting to shake slightly. The Kethmori had legends about a special connection that could form between their kind and certain rare individuals. They called it the soul bond. It was said that when an alpha found his perfect mate, he would know instantly by her scent. Could this be what the old stories talked about? Kyung had ruled for 15 years and had never felt anything like this before. He had met human females during diplomatic meetings and trading encounters. Some had been beautiful and intelligent, but none had affected him this way. This scent made every instinct he possessed come alive at once. Follow the trail, he commanded his warriors. But move carefully. I want to see this human before we decide what to do. They tracked the scent for nearly an hour, moving silently between the huge silver trees. The forest was alive with bioluminescent plants that cast strange colored light in all directions. Most humans who entered this place became lost and frightened within minutes. The few who survived long enough to be found by Kethmori patrols were usually half mad with terror. But this human seemed to be moving with purpose. The trail was straight and steady, showing no signs of panic or confusion. Whoever this person was, they had incredible courage, or they were too exhausted to care about the danger anymore. They found her sleeping beneath a cluster of glowing blue flowers. Kyung stopped breathing when he saw her. She was small and delicate compared to his people, but there was something about her that made his heart race. Her long black hair spread around her like silk. Her face was peaceful in sleep, but he could see traces of old tears on her cheeks. She had been crying before she fell asleep. Someone had hurt this precious creature, and the thought made anger burn in Kyung's chest. His warriors waited for orders, but he raised his hand to keep them silent. He wanted to study her for a few more moments. The soul bond legends said that when an alpha found his true mate, he would feel the need to protect and cherish her above all else. He would want to give her everything good in the world and shield her from anything that might cause her pain. Looking at this sleeping human girl, Kyung felt exactly those emotions flooding through him. She was beautiful, but it was more than that. Something about her called to the deepest part of his being. He had the strangest feeling that he had been waiting his entire life for this moment without even knowing it. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the trees, the human girl started to wake up. Kyung signaled for his warriors to spread out in a circle around the clearing. He did not want to frighten her, but he also did not want her to run away before he could speak with her. The girl opened her eyes slowly and blinked in confusion at the strange surroundings. Then she saw the 6 massive figures surrounding her, and Kyung expected her to scream in terror. Every human he had ever met had that reaction when they first saw the Kethmori, but this girl did something completely unexpected. She sat up calmly and looked directly at him with dark, intelligent eyes. There was sadness in her gaze and exhaustion, but no fear at all. It was as if she had already accepted that death might find her in this place, and she was not going to fight. You are far from your territory, little human, Kyung said, stepping forward. His voice was deep and rumbling, but he tried to make it as gentle as possible. What brings you to our domain? The girl studied his face for a long moment before answering. My name is Nara, she said quietly. I am here because I have nowhere else to go. Something in her voice made Kyung's chest tighten with emotion. This was not someone who had wandered into the forest by accident. This was someone who had been driven here by desperation or pain or both. Tell me what happened, he said, sitting down on the ground so he would not tower over her quite so much. His warriors looked surprised by this gesture. Their Alpha King never made himself smaller for anyone. But Kyung wanted to put this fragile human at ease. Nara looked at him with those sad, dark eyes and began to tell her story. She spoke slowly and quietly, as if the words were difficult to say. She told him about the testing machine and how she could not make the lights glow. She told him about her parents calling her defective and useless. She told him about being abandoned at the edge of the forbidden zone like a piece of garbage. With every word, Kyung's anger grew stronger. How dare her own people treat such a precious being this way? How could they be so blind to her worth? By the time she finished speaking, his hands were clenched into fists, and his silver eyes were blazing with fury. Your parents cast you out because You cannot produce this energy they prize so highly, he said. His voice carried a dangerous edge that made his warriors step back respectfully. Nara nodded and looked down at her hands. I am defective, she whispered. Useless, I cannot contribute to our society's growth or survival. What Kyung did next shocked everyone, including himself. He threw back his head and laughed long and loud. The sound echoed through the forest, startling birds from their nests. His warriors exchanged glances, unsure what to make of their leader's reaction. Little human Kyung said, moving closer to Nara, until she could feel the warmth radiating from his massive frame. Your people understand nothing about true power. What you call a defect, we call a gift beyond measure. The confusion in Nara's eyes made his heart ache. She had been told she was worthless for so long that she could not imagine being valuable to anyone, but Kyung knew better. He had studied human energy patterns for years as part of his diplomatic duties. He knew exactly what her condition meant, and it was the opposite of defective. She was evolved, she was special. She was exactly what he had been searching for his entire life, without even knowing it, and now she was here in his forest looking at him with those beautiful sad eyes. The soul bond was real, and it was pulling him toward her with a force he could not resist. Nara, Kim, you are not worthless, he said gently, reaching out to touch her cheek. You are priceless. Your own people were too blind to see the treasure they possessed. For the first time since he had found her, Nara smiled. It was small and uncertain, but it transformed her entire face. Kyung felt his heart skip a beat and knew, with absolute certainty, that he would spend the rest of his life trying to make her smile like that again. Kim Nara stood in front of the testing machine and tried not to shake. Her hands were cold and wet with sweat. Around her, 20 other young people waited for their turn. They all looked excited and happy. Today was the day they would prove they could help their colony grow and survive on the alien planet Terra-9. The machine was tall and silver with glowing blue lights. When someone put their hands on it, the lights would get brighter. The brighter the lights got, the more life energy that person could make. Life energy was the most important thing in their world. Without it, humans could not have babies. Without it, they could not grow food properly. Without it, their colony would die. Nara watched as her friend Hannah walked up to the machine. Hannah was always confident about everything. She placed her small hands on the metal surface and closed her eyes. The machine began to hum softly. The blue lights started glowing brighter and brighter until they filled the whole room with beautiful light. Everyone clapped and cheered. Hannah had passed the test with flying colors. One by one, the other young people took their turns. Some made the lights glow bright. Others made them glow just a little bit, but everyone made them glow at least something. Soon it was only Nara left standing there. Dr. Park, the colony scientist, called her name. Nara, Kim, step forward, please. His voice was kind, but she could hear worry in it. Everyone knew about Nara. Everyone knew she was different. She had never been able to feel the life energy that flowed through everything. While other children could sense it moving through plants and animals and even rocks, Nara felt nothing at all. She walked slowly to the machine. Her legs felt heavy, like they were made of stone. Behind her, she could hear people whispering. Some of them were saying mean things. They called her the broken girl. They said she was cursed. They said her parents must have done something wrong to have a child like her. Nara put her hands on the cold metal surface. She closed her eyes tight and tried as hard as she could to find the energy inside herself. She thought about all the lessons she had learned. She thought about how the teachers explained that everyone had this power deep inside them. She tried to imagine the warm, glowing feeling that other people described. Nothing happened. The machine stayed quiet. The lights stayed dim. Dr. Park waited a few more minutes, then gently told her to step back. The test was over. Nara had failed completely. The room was silent. Everyone stared at her with different expressions. Some looked sorry for her. Others looked disgusted. A few looked afraid, like her condition might be something they could catch. Nara wanted to run away and hide, but her feet would not move. When she finally got home that evening, her parents were waiting for her in the living room. Her father, Kim Tae-wo, was a tall, serious man who helped lead their colony. Her mother, Dr. Kim Hai-jin, was one of their best medical researchers. Both of them had strong life energy. Both of them were respected and important. Both of them looked at their daughter like she was something dirty they had found on their shoes. "We heard about the test results," her father said. His voice was cold and angry. "You failed completely. Not even a tiny bit of energy." "Nothing at all." Nara nodded and looked down at the floor. She had expected this reaction. Her parents had been disappointed in her for years. Every birthday, every school event, every family gathering was a reminder that she was not what they wanted in a daughter. Her mother stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the 2 purple moons that hung in the alien sky. "Nara, we have been patient with," she said without turning around. "We hoped that maybe your energy would develop late. Some children are slow to show their abilities. But you are 20 years old now. This is not about being late. This is about being defective." The word hit Nara like a physical blow. Defective. That was what her parents really thought of her. Not just different or unusual, but actually broken, like a machine that did not work properly. Her father continued talking. "Our family has a reputation to maintain," he said. "People look up to us for leadership. How can we lead them when our own daughter is useless? You cannot have children. You cannot help grow food. You cannot do any of the things that make life possible." On this planet. What her parents said next made Nara's blood turn to ice in her veins. "We have made a decision," her mother said, finally turning around to look at her. "Tomorrow morning we will take you to the edge of the Forbidden Zone. You will have to make your own way from there." The Forbidden Zone was where the dangerous alien creatures lived. It was thick forest full of things that could kill a human in seconds. No one went there unless they wanted to die. Her parents were basically giving her a death sentence, but why? Nara whispered. "I know I am different, but I am still your daughter. I still love you. I have tried so hard to make you proud." "Love is not enough," her father said sharply. "Pride is not enough. This colony needs people who can contribute. You're just taking up space and resources that could go to someone useful." That night, Nara packed her few belongings into a small bag. She did not have much. Some clothes, some books, a few pictures of better times when her parents had not completely given up on her. She also took a necklace that her grandmother had given her before she died. It was the only thing she owned that someone had given her with love. She lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow her parents would drive her out to the most dangerous place on the planet and leave her there to die. She thought about all the years she had spent trying to be good enough for them. All the time she had studied extra hard or helped around the house or tried to make them smile. None of it mattered now. In their eyes, she was not their daughter anymore. She was just a problem they needed to get rid of. When morning came, her father loaded her bag into their hover car without saying a word. Her mother did not even come outside to say goodbye. The ride to the Forbidden Zone took 2 hours. Her father did not speak the entire time. He just stared straight ahead at the road like she was not even there. When they reached the edge of the forest, he stopped the car and turned to look at her for the first time that day. "Maybe the beasts will put you out of your misery," he said. His voice had no emotion in it at all. "It would be kinder than letting you live as a burden to everyone around you." Nara got out of the car and took her bag. She watched as her father drove away without looking back. The sound of the hover car got quieter and quieter until it disappeared completely. Then she was alone. The Forbidden Zone stretched out in front of her like a wall of green and silver. Strange sounds came from deep inside the forest. Things that howled and roared and made noises she had never heard before. The trees were huge, with bark that looked like metal. Plants glowed with their own light. Everything looked alien and dangerous. Nara took a deep breath and stepped into the forest. She had nowhere else to go. Behind her was a colony that did not want her. Ahead was almost certain death. But for the first time in years, she felt something like freedom. Maybe her parents were right. Maybe she was broken and useless, but at least now she would not have to pretend anymore. At least now she could be herself, whatever that meant. As she walked deeper into the alien wilderness, Nara began to feel something strange. The heavy weight of shame and sadness that had pressed down on her for so long was starting to lift. Step by step the burden got lighter. She was still afraid. She was still alone, but she was also free. 5 years had passed since the failed human attack on Kethmori territory, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The story of Nara, the human queen who could absorb alien energy, had spread to every inhabited world. Beings from dozens of different species came seeking audiences with the legendary bridge walker who had united two completely different forms of life. The Kethmori capital had grown into a bustling center of interstellar diplomacy. Ships from across the galaxy landed daily in the expanded spaceport that Nara and Kyung had built together. Traders brought exotic goods from distant worlds, while diplomats came to learn the secrets of peaceful coexistence. But the most important visitors were the outcasts and misfits who had been rejected by their own people. Word had spread that the Kethmori kingdom welcomed those who were different. Beings with unusual abilities or uncommon appearances found sanctuary under Queen Nara's protection. There was Zola, a crystalline being whose body sang with musical tones that her silicon-based people found disturbing. There was Finn, a young human whose telepathic abilities had made him feared in his home colony. There was Kree, a warrior whose 4 arms had marked her as cursed among her 2-armed tribe. Each of them had been cast out for being different, just as Nara had been. And each of them found acceptance and purpose in the growing community that surrounded the royal palace. Nara had established schools and training centers, where individuals with unusual gifts could learn to control and develop their abilities. She taught them that being different was not a curse, but a blessing that could benefit everyone if properly understood. The young telepaths learned to use their mind-reading skills to help resolve disputes and find missing persons. The energy manipulators discovered they could heal injuries and repair damaged technology. The shapeshifters became master diplomats who could literally put themselves in someone else's shoes. Under Nara's guidance, what had once been seen as disabilities became valuable assets that made the kingdom stronger and more prosperous than ever before. The most remarkable change was in human society itself. As news of Queen Nara's incredible abilities spread throughout human space, attitudes toward energy-deficient individuals began to shift dramatically. Medical researchers who had once dismissed these people as genetic failures now studied them, intensively searching for the secrets of their unique capabilities. Dar Park, the same scientist who had administered Nara's failed test years earlier, published groundbreaking research proving that energy absorption was not a defect but an evolutionary advancement. Children who would have been abandoned or hidden away were now celebrated as potentially powerful assets to their communities. The human colonies that had once rejected anyone different began competing to attract and train these special individuals. Universities offered full scholarships to study energy manipulation and interspecies relations. Military forces recruited them as specialists in alien contact and psychic defense. Nara had not just changed her own life. She had transformed how an entire species viewed genetic diversity and individual worth. On this particular morning, she stood in the great throne room of the Tree Palace receiving a delegation from the Terran Federation. The same government that had once tried to destroy her home now sent ambassadors begging for formal diplomatic relations. Ambassador Kyun bowed deeply as he approached the silver throne where Nara sat beside her mate. Your Majesty, he said, his voice filled with respect and nervousness, we come to offer our most sincere apologies for past misunderstandings between our peoples. Nara studied the man's face with her enhanced senses, reading the emotions beneath his diplomatic words. She could feel his genuine remorse mixed with fear and desperate hope. The human colonies were facing threats from hostile alien races, and they needed allies who understood both human and non-human psychology. Apologies are easy to speak, Ambassador Chung, she replied calmly, but actions matter more than words. What are you prepared to do to prove that humanity has truly changed its attitudes toward those who are different? The ambassador straightened and pulled out a formal document sealed with the official emblems of dozens of human worlds. We have drafted the Genetic Diversity Protection Act, he announced. It guarantees equal rights and opportunities for all humans, regardless of their energy manipulation abilities or lack thereof. Furthermore, we propose establishing an exchange program where human students can study here while Kathmori scholars visit our academies. We want to learn from your example of inclusive society. Nara exchanged a meaningful look with Kang, who nodded slightly. Her mate trusted her judgment completely when it came to diplomatic matters. Through their bond, she could feel his pride in how skillfully she handled these complex negotiations. Your proposals have merit, she said finally, but there is one condition that must be met before we can consider formal relations. Anything Your Majesty, Ambassador Chun said eagerly. I want my parents brought here to face me, Nara declared. Colonel Kim Tae-woo and Dr. Kim Hae-jin must answer for their treatment of their own daughter. They must publicly acknowledge their mistakes and make amends. The color drained from Ambassador Chun's face. Your Majesty, that might be difficult to arrange. Your parents hold important positions in the colonial government. Asking them to submit to alien justice could cause political complications. Nara's eyes blazed with silver light, and her voice carried the authority of absolute power. Then you can explain to your government that those political complications are nothing compared to what will happen if they refuse my simple request. The ambassador swallowed hard and bowed again. I will deliver your message immediately, Your Majesty. 3 weeks later, Kim Tae-woo and Kim Hae-jin arrived at the Kathmori capital under diplomatic escort. Both looked older and more tired than Nara remembered. Her father had lost weight and his hair had gone completely gray. Her mother walked with a slight limp and her hands shook with what might have been illness or just nerves. They were brought to the throne room under guard, but Nara had ordered that they be treated with basic dignity. She was not interested in revenge, only injustice and closure. When they saw their daughter sitting on the alien throne wearing robes that glowed with inner light, both parents fell to their knees. The contrast between the confident, powerful queen before them and the frightened, rejected girl they remembered was so complete it took their breath away. My daughter, Kim Tae-woo whispered, his voice broken with emotion. What have we done? What terrible mistake did we make? Nara stood and walked down from the throne until she was standing directly in front of them. Her parents looked up at her with expressions of wonder and shame and desperate hope for forgiveness. You threw away the greatest treasure you ever possessed, she said quietly. You had a daughter who could have bridged the gap between species, who could have prevented wars and saved countless lives. Instead, you saw only what you thought she lacked and ignored what she truly offered. Dr. Kim Hae-jin began to weep. We were so blind, she sobbed. We thought we were protecting our reputation, our standing in the community. We never considered that we might be wrong about what you represented, standing there looking down at the people who had given her life, then rejected her completely. Nara felt the last traces of old pain finally healing. For years she had carried the wound of their abandonment deep in her heart. Now she could let it go at last. I forgive you, she said simply. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying anger serves no purpose. You made your choice based on fear and ignorance. I made mine based on love and understanding. She gestured toward the bustling activity visible through the throne room windows. Ships from dozens of worlds, passengers of every conceivable species, all living and working together in harmony. Look around you, she continued. See what can be accomplished when differences are celebrated instead of feared. This is what I was meant to build, and I could never have done it if you had not forced me to leave everything familiar behind. Kim Tae-woo raised his head with tears streaming down his face. Can you ever find it in your heart to forgive a foolish old man who threw away his most precious child? He asked. Nara reached out and touched his cheek gently. You are forgiven, father, she said, both of you. But understand that I am no longer the daughter you remember. I am something new, something greater. I am exactly what the universe intended me to become. As her parents were escorted back to their ship, Nara returned to her throne beside Kyung. Her mate reached over and took her hand, squeezing it gently. Through their bond, she could feel his love and admiration flowing into her heart. You handled that perfectly, he said. Firm but merciful, strong but compassionate. You truly are the greatest treasure in the galaxy. Nara smiled and squeezed his hand in return. Years ago, she had been an unwanted daughter cast out for being different. Now she was a beloved queen, whose unique gifts had changed the course of galactic history. She had gone from being seen as worthless to being recognized as priceless. And every single day, Kyung treated her exactly like the treasure. She had always been just waiting for someone with the wisdom to see her true value. In the end, that was all anyone really needed, to be recognized, appreciated, and loved for exactly who they were meant to be.